So, in somewhat of a political shakeup, Ukraine has appointed a new prime minister and defense minister in what appears to be both a domestic reset and a strategic realignment to acquiesce to some of the Trump administration's demands. Now, Yulia Sviridenko will now lead the government as prime minister, while former prime minister Denis Smyl has moved to head of the defense ministry. With this change, Parliament also passed legislation merging the defense ministry with the Ministry for Strategic Industries. This gives Smyl control over Ukraine's defense sector, including weapons production and international defense partnerships. President Zelensky said he expects Parliament to support the new cabinet and called for a swift audit of Ukraine's agreements with international partners to determine what is working and what needs adjustment. Meanwhile, the European Union announced its 18th sanctions package against Russia. New measures include a price cap on Russian oil, a ban on all transactions tied to the Nord Stream pipelines, restrictions on Russian financial institutions, and sanctions on more than 100 vessels in Russia's shadow fleet. The European Union also ended Czechia's, formerly known as the Czech Republic's, exemption for Russian oil and introduced a ban on refined products made from Russian crude unless imported from a small group of allied nations. Now, on the battlefield, Russia appears to be accelerating its efforts, aiming to make 2025 a decisive year. However, despite the rhetoric suggesting Moscow can sustain this war indefinitely, reality paints a different picture here. Russia's economy is strained, its reliance on North Korea, China, and Iran is growing, and Trump is pressuring for an end to the war. President Putin recently announced plans to cut military spending beginning in 2026, suggesting he hopes for the breakthroughs this year to strengthen his hand in any future negotiations. That is unlikely. Now, Russian forces have made recent territorial gains, particularly in the east. We're looking at around here, taking about 550 to 600 square kilometers in June. Still, this progress is modest compared to the size of Ukraine, and their advances come with heavy casualties. Ukraine's defensive lines continue to hold, especially around Sumy here, where the gains are very, very minimal, and Russia even loses some of their gains as they spread across the front line. This despite the fact that the Russian border is literally right here. That being said, Russia's main focus continues to be Pokrovsk, which is honestly in a more and more precarious position as the days go on, but the defense continues to hold for the long term. This is actually the longest defense that Ukraine has held against such a forceful attack since this war began. So any predictions of the fall of Pokrovsk in the near term could be foolish at this point because they have held on for so long, even in the face of massive and sustained attacks from Russia. In the air, Russia has launched large-scale drone and missile raids, including two massive attacks on July 16th and the 19th. While Ukraine's air defenses intercepted many, some still got through, causing damage and suffering to civilian populations. The spike in attacks helped drive Trump's recent decision to speed up air defense support to Ukraine. That is according to aides in his inner circle. Now, despite Russia's pressure from land and air, the front lines remain largely unchanged. Both sides face challenges, but neither appears close to forcing a breakthrough. And as I've said for the past couple of years, the attritional battle here always favors the defense, and that is what Ukraine is on. So they will continue to inflict massive casualties, giving Russia minimal gains. And in the long term, this just isn't going to work for Russia.